a treat. This is going to be a great conversation. And we're hoping that you're going to find value in this and take away some really good nuggets with you today. So I know it might be different times where you might be, but it is 4 p.m. Eastern time in our world, in the guests are going to be talking today. So I hope you can grab something, maybe something refreshing. I just decided to make me a cold brew latte. I know, right? But I always keep water nearby. That's my go-to. So hopefully you've got something that you can either have a nice little refreshing drink or oh, okay, what you got there, Oryx? Okay, look at everybody. Okay, nah, I love it. So we got a little bit of everything going on. We'll talk to them in a minute. So I want to share with you. I know many of you already know what you signed up for, but I'm going to give you more information about today's webinar. And the title of it is called The Value of Support Through Emotional CPR and Medication Reduction. And today, our presenters are Dr. Dan Fisher, Oryx Cohen, and Carman Allen. So this training is many people experiencing strong emotions found that psychiatric medications can be helpful. Yet at times in consultation with their psychiatrist, they may want to reduce their meds or medication. In a recent SAMHSA webinar, Laura Delano of Inner Compass stated that when reducing medications, even if very gradually, people may experience an increase in strong emotions. She said to successfully reduce medications, we need to learn to live with strong emotions and understand them. People have found emotional CPR helpful as a means of understanding and living with emotions through connection and support during life struggles. In this webinar, the presenters will share their experiences with how using principles of eCPR helped them in their recovery. And this webinar is not intended as medical advice. I'm going to read that one more time. This webinar is not intended as medical advice for specific medications or individuals. This is just more of information and a conversation around this. So I like to introduce first, and then you'll go around and meet everybody, but I'm just going to read their bios. Dr. Dan Fisher, and his life purpose comes from his lived experience of recovery from schizophrenia, which inspired him to dedicate himself to helping others find their voice and recovery. He has been an advocate and a leader within the peer-led consumer, survivor, and ex-patient movement for the past 4 decades, and one of the co-creators of Emotional CPR. He earned his MD and completed his residency in psychiatry at Harvard Medical School and has practiced as a board-certified community psychiatrist for 30 years. In 1992, he founded the federal-funded National Empowerment Center and served as its executive director for 30 years and serves as president of the board. He is a consumer of the president's new, he is a commissioner of the president's new Freedom Commission on Mental Health. Now 80 years young, he is focused on developing trainers of eCPR and community building. That's Dr. Dan Fisher. Welcome, Dr. Dan Fisher. Oryx Cohen. Oryx Cohen is our CEO of the National Empowerment Center. He is a master emotional CPR trainer, which is NEC's core training. Oryx co-produced and is subject in the award-winning social action documentary, Healing Voices. Many of you probably have seen that. If not, I recommend to Google it, look it up. It is a really great movie documentary, which was released in April 2016. Oryx has a lived experience with reducing medications and co-created a coming off psychiatric drugs during training with Will Hall that has been delivered around the world. He is featured in Dan Mackler's documentary, Coming of Psychic Drugs, a meeting of the minds, which is now available for free on YouTube. That's a nice plus. In his spare time, Oryx coaches girls basketball year round. That's his love. And won Massachusetts Coach of the Year. I remember that happened, Oryx. That was so cool. In 2024, 2025, Oryx lives with his wife and 2 children in Massachusetts. Welcome, Oryx. So glad to have you here as well. Carman Allen. Carman is a compassionate leader, educator, and advocate in the field of behavioral health as a certified recovery substance abuse specialist and emotional CPR trainer with 18 plus years of professional experience and 20 years of lived recovery experience. Carman brings a unique, deeply empathetic perspective to her work. Her extensive background includes serving as a peer support advocate for Cummins Behavioral Health Systems and as an addiction specialist for Eskenazi Hospital Midtown Community Mental Health. Carman is an expert in group facilitation, relapse prevention, crisis intervention, and community-based traveling. She holds a BS in addiction counseling from Indiana Wesleyan University. And beyond her clinical work, Carman is a trailblazer in community wellness, notably founding the first Celebrate Recovery program in a Black community church and leading specialized support groups for women with co-occurring diagnosis. And welcome, Carman. So thank you, everybody, for settling in. I'm super excited for this conversation. And we're going to be talking to each one of them, and it's going to be a very fluid conversation as well. But I would love, Dan, to frame our conversation around this topic. Dan, could you do that for us, please?
Well, hello, everyone. I'm going to give a little bit of background about where the idea for this came about. And I'll start off with a little bit of my own history on this, because that's really, in a way, where it began. A lot of what we do in our movement is from our lived experience. And in my 20s, while I was a biochemist, actually, I was hospitalized 3 times, and I was in an alternate reality. I needed assistance. I wish there'd been peer run respites, but there weren't. Now we do have quite a few. I look back on it and I believe, and I think it's true for a lot of people, if it's handled in a loving, caring, compassionate way, that the experience of going into other realities was healing for me, very healing. And that's an important reframe, because if that is indeed true, then that's a reason for minimizing medication, not no medication, but recognizing that the struggle that we go through and the distress that we experience is part of our healing. We give some medication at times. Like, I'm a psychiatrist, board certified psychiatrist, and at times the experiences go beyond the capacity of the person, the people around them, to hold the feelings and the emotions. But I believe, and I've observed, that through emotional CPR, we can expand the capacity of ourselves and the people around us to hold these emotional experiences. So I learned a lot from my own withdrawal, by the way. It's a little hard because I do not recommend withdrawing from medication the way I did it. On my 3rd hospitalization, and I had a very, very caring, compassionate, and very smart psychiatrist, and he went along with my withdrawal from medication. Mine was, I just had to stop it. It was I was on a major tranquilizer, and and my side effects were terrible. Um, but I found people and people found me, and they instinctively were providing emotional CPR. And that was before, we'd even conceptualized it formally. But I believe emotional CPR is within each of us. It's in our spirit. It's in our genes. It's in our culture. We wouldn't have evolved to this point if we had to wait for a psychiatric call. Which, distress usually happens at night and on weekends anyway. So that's why we developed emotional CPR, is to fill in all those gaps of support that cannot and just aren't there on a professional basis solely. So I was withdrawing, and I didn't know what to do. Withdrawal from any one of these psychiatric medications causes a lot of distress. And it used to be thought that this was a return of your symptoms of the original mental health condition. But this is not generally the case. Usually the withdrawal from the medication itself causes anxiety, causes fear, can cause depression. And I was going, and my body was actually just shaking. So I found there was a neighbor who I knew a little bit, and I just knocked on her door and I said, I just don't know what to do. I need to talk to somebody. And she was just marvelous, fixing some tea. I said, I need to be rocked. She rocked me. Um, I still feel so touched by what she instinctively brought, which was her own person, her own being. She didn't question me a lot. I said, I've had a tough time. I didn't go into all the details. She said, I can see you're going through a hard time. Just stay. I'll stay here with you. And that's what we find is most important. Emotional CPR is just to be with you. I couldn't sleep for several nights. Um, and I didn't want to take something to go to sleep because I was trying to come off of some medication. So I called my brother-in-law, and he was a doctor, my late brother-in-law, marvelous guy, but very, very proper, very staid. Um, and he was a medical doctor. He didn't quite know what to do, I could tell. And I said, I'm so upset. I'm so agitated. And he's like, well, how's your uncle doing? I said, why are you asking me that? He said, well, I read it somewhere that you should ask a question like that. I said, well, that's nice. And he's so compassionate that I gave him a pass on it. We generally in emotional CPR don't recommend that, asking questions, but the compassion was there for sure. And he was connecting with me for 2 hours in the middle of the night. And here's a busy doctor. He's going to have to get up the next morning and see his own patients. And then I said to him, I was in medical school, I said, my gosh, my heart rate's 140. I'm going to die. I don't know how I can stand having a heart rate of 140. And he was like, very proper. Well, when you make love, your heart rate goes up to 140. I'm trying to picture Mr. Proper brother-in-law. Well, I got a laugh out of it. I want to give you one other example.
You can't see everybody right now, Dan, but everybody is probably just blushing, just
I'm blushing.
full blood on everybody's faces right now, all over the world. Oh, we needed that laugh. Thank you for that.
It helped. It helped. It helped now too.
Oh, wow.
When I was after 6 days of not sleeping, which is that's why I say I do not recommend doing what I did. Um, I I called my brother-in-law again, Chuck. I said, "Come on, I really, really can't sleep, and I trust him so much." And I mean, he's the guy that said when I just got out of the hospital, and I said, "I want to be a psychiatrist." He also just said, "Oh, you can make it. You can do it. You can go through medical school." I mean, I was 4 sheets to the wind. So he said, take one pill of Haldol. Just take one pill, and it'll probably help you sleep. And I did. I took the pill. Probably wouldn't have taken anybody else to recommend it but him. But someone you really trust, have them around. They might recommend it. I slept, and I really haven't been on any psychiatric medication since. That was 40 plus years ago. Now, I, as a friend of mine who very recently was describing her withdrawal from a mood stabilizer. So she's been diagnosed with bipolar, and this applies. I just want to give you a flavor of it. These withdrawals apply to many different kinds of psychiatric drugs. Mood stabilizers, like lithium or Depakote. I'm not going to name them all. Some will feel left out if I don't. If I try some of them, the others will say, "Why didn't you mention me?" No, but these medications are difficult to get off of too. And I've been a friend of hers. She was a friend of my daughter. She played on her soccer team when she was 14, 15. So I've known her, and she's now 45. So I've known her for 30 years. And she was convinced that she had, classical bipolar disorder. I'm not going to trash diagnoses, but they should always be taken with a grain of salt and not just lithium. And so she was taking her medicine very dutifully, taking it, but then she discovered she had another kind of medical condition, and when she took like a steroid for that, her psychiatric symptoms went away. So she started thinking, well, maybe I'm not primarily having a psychiatric problem. I'll try to withdraw from the mood stabilizer. So she did it over about a 6-month period. Smarter way to do it. And I said, how did you do it? Well, she said, first of all, her husband, her partner, was unconditionally supportive. He held an unwavering belief in my resilience and capacity to navigate the process. He stayed the course, never communicating fear, doubt, or hesitation. So when she was very upset, he could be with her and he could experience her feelings without feeling he had to make hers go away or his go away. That's a very important aspect of emotional CPR. He stayed the course, and he also believed that she would always get through it. Very important. Among closest friends, I was surprised by the depth of their faith in my ability to do it. If I were to distill down one thing, that would be love, unconditional love, the kind of love that has deep roots. And really, emotional CPR is about being able to love another person, being able to love yourself in all the different varieties of ways that love occurs. And so she said that each of these people gave her the feeling that she could do it. And that's the empowerment aspect of emotional CPR. So I'm just going to conclude with sort of how these withdrawal experiences relate to emotional CPR, because they're there. From my experience, the intentions, which Oryx will go over, the intentions of emotional CPR are very helpful for withdrawal from medications and also from withdrawal from addictive substances and addictive behavior, because they change your thinking. And emotional CPR helps change your thinking and says you can withstand strong emotions and you have the capacity to heal within yourself. You don't have to take a substance. So when we connect at an emotional level, we gain trust of the person that's with us. And by expressing our own feelings as a supporter, when we're assisting someone, then we deepen that connection. We try to be with the person and with their distress, not trying to advise them or ask a lot of questions, which helps them to accept and live with their own distress. And instead of asking questions and supplying answers, we explore their feelings together. And those feelings become the basis of their power and your power, actually, when you're assisting them. You both are empowered. It's mutual. And then no longer do you feel the need for medication to heal these problems, because you have the power inside yourself to be able to feel and understand your emotions, just as Laura Delano said, would be very helpful. Then you're more in charge of your life and you feel empowered, you feel more alive, and you feel hopeful.
Mm. I love all of that.
That's what
Yeah.
I've learned in a few years of being around all these problems.
Oh, and we're just getting started. So,
We'll
um,
learn more today. I'm
absolutely,
so eager.
absolutely. Dan, thank you
So
so
thank
much for
you.
that. And I'm also looking in the chat. Welcome everybody. I'm seeing people literally all over the world. If you would
Hmm.
continue to share your name, where you're from, where you are in the world right now, we would love to know that. And if you have been an experience with emotional CPR, if you were trained at some point in time, even if you went to one of our lunch and learns. So, to talking about emotional CPR, Oryx, our CEO with the National Empowerment Center, can you tell us more about emotional CPR and how it relates to this conversation?
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
And to
So,
you, Oryx, how did it relate to you?
right, right. Yes, because that we are experts on ourselves
Absolutely.
first and foremost. So, thanks, Kim. Thanks, Dan. That was great. So first of all, this topic is super important to me. It was a huge part of my own recovery, finding a way to reduce all medications in my case. And I know that's not always the case, but I was able to completely withdraw from medications. And one of the reasons is I had a lot of support. And the more support that you can have around you, if that is something that you want to do, is reduce your medications, the better. And Dan is actually someone who supported me to through a hard time and to come off medications. And Dan is trained in emotional CPR, and that's just the way he kind of lives. So I'm very grateful to Dan for that. Um, so I'm gonna talk about emotional CPR and relate it to my own life. Um, I've I've had a few different um, crisis points in my life, and been placed on medications a few times, and had the opportunity to withdraw from medications, which in my case was really, really helpful. A couple rules in terms of coming off meds, and as Kim mentioned, I have a lot of experience with training and talking about this subject, but for the most part, in general, the longer that you've been on a medication, the more difficult it is to come off. And in my case, I was on medication for a short time. So it was a little bit easier for me to withdraw. And I did withdraw um, gradually each time, but it was a fairly quick kind of progression. And each time I did have support of a doctor, which I'm going to get into telling you a little bit more of that. To tell you a little bit about emotional CPR, what it is, and how it's related to coming off meds or coming off psych drugs. So, our goal is to train people to assist others through an emotional crisis and to make this practice accessible to people around the world. Um, so, coming off of psychiatric drugs, as has been brought up, can bring up strong emotions, and it can bring up kind of a crisis situation, a difficult situation. So definitely emotional CPR can be used in crisis situations and in coming off medications. Start with cultural empathy. I think it's really important. We always start off with this slide with emotional CPR. So we're going to start where the person is, wherever that is, right? And not prejudge, because someone could be totally fine coming off medic. It doesn't necessarily have to be difficult, but it could be extremely difficult. So where is the person at in this process? Um, so in my case, the first time that I went through something, it was quite intense, and um, I ended up in a really bad car accident and broke my collarbone and was in a hospital and got transferred to the psych ward because of what I was going through. I was in a altered state when this happened. I got in this car accident, um, and I got placed on Risperdal, Depakote. I think it's pretty much Risperdal and Depakote, and so that was how I got introduced to psych drugs. These were heavy duty drugs. Um, and um, And my family was terrified, absolutely terrified about what happened because they almost lost me in the car accident. And they definitely respected whatever the doctors said, that I needed, that I was mentally ill, that I needed to be on these psych drugs for the rest of my life. So that was my starting point. um, and um, so I get placed on all these medications. Um, and that's where my family kind of found me. And I'll pick up this story as we go along. We need to respectfully experience the other person's world. So I needed to respect and learn, and I didn't at first. I need to respect where my family was coming from, because emotional CPR is mutual. It's both ways, right? And in order to practice emotional CPR, it has to be a mutual thing. So it took me a while to be able to respect what they were going through in terms of this was a really intense experience for them. Um, Being sensitive to cultural difference. So, in the terms of coming off psych drugs, different people have different beliefs and different ways they want to approach their wellness. Some people um, are okay with psychiatric drugs or medication, and that's perfectly fine, and even for some, life-saving in their own words, right? And some people just, like, my background was, I don't want to take anything that's synthetic, anything like that. That's where I was kind of brought up. Even being careful with like Tylenol. So you have to be respectful of where someone's coming from, where their culture, their background. And I had to get better at this the more that I did work in this field, because I thought, oh, well, everybody's like me and nobody needs medication and we should try to get everybody off medication. That was where I started with that. And I definitely matured and grown, and now I supportive of anybody in terms of where they want to go with their it's their choice, their body. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, then let's look at other options. Avoid assumptions about who the person is and what they need. That is huge. Avoid, because I was definitely doing that to other people for a while. All right, so let's dive in now to, as Dan said, the intentions of emotional CPR. So there's 7 intentions of emotional CPR, and the C is for connect. We connect heart to heart. The P is for empowerment, which is a little bit of a cheat, but that's what the P is. And R is revitalization. So, connect, the first intention, we connect through feelings first, respecting you as equally human, fully listening with my eyes, ears, and heart. It took a while to get there with my family because it was a very intense situation. But once we got there, um, I would listen to their concerns and they would hear where I was coming from. And being uh, coming from a Jewish background and a family that was very high on academics and knowledge and that kind of thing, what really opened them to the possibility of me coming off these drugs was research. So I did my own research and found, oh, there's actually evidence for coming off psych drugs. People can do really, really well. Well, actually, most people do really well when they come off these drugs, and actually have better outcomes overall than being on a lot of psych drugs. And sharing this research kind of helped me connect to my family a little better. Um, when I was in the hospital, I expressed to the psychiatrist there my feelings. I was very emotional. I was crying. I was like, I feel like I've been thrown out of the human race. I don't know why I'm here. Um, I don't know why I'm on all these drugs. I'm scared. And this psychiatrist did not practice emotional CPR. This psychiatrist, I think, was wanting the problem to go away, so to speak. And how do a lot of psychiatrists do that? You need more medication. You're actually on a low dose of Depakote. I'm going to double your dose. So I ended up on a huge dose of Depakote. It was pretty toxic, actually. But I got there because I expressed my emotions, and the psychiatrist did not know how to practice emotional CPR and just gave me more drugs. So when I got out of the hospital, I got sick all the time. And I don't know what's going on. I've never been in the mental health system. I thought I just had bad pizza one night because I was throwing up. And it was just, I was toxic from the medications. I gained 40 pounds in a couple months. I was sleeping 16 hours a day. I was on the road to be a career mental patient, basically. But I knew in my heart I needed to get off these. And somehow in that state, I did all this research. I started talking to my family about it. Like I want to get off these medications. And I shopped around for psychiatrists. I must have went to 3 or 4 psychiatrists. And they should work for us, right? So if it didn't go well, I said, okay, I'm not going to see you anymore. And I finally found one because I did end up going back to school at UMass, which is one of the hardest things I ever did, is go back to face the people where I was acting pretty strangely and face them. And I got to talk to a psychiatrist who worked at UMass, and he was a real person. I connected with him. He shared some of his own story, and the first thing he said was, "You're over medicated," and I was like, "Yeah." And he helped me to reduce. He didn't help me reduce completely off. He didn't feel safe, or there's liability and things like that. But he really helped me because he connected with me through emotional CPR. So the second intention, I will hold space for my first feelings, breathing into a deeper space of resonance, becoming aware of my broader feelings and thoughts. Sometimes we have to take a breath because these situations are very intense. So if we overreact to the first feeling, we can do more harm than good. So the third one, I will share my broader feelings and thoughts and stay with you. So oftentimes, if you're supporting someone coming off meds, those broader feelings and thoughts are, it might be fear, a lot of fear around what's going to happen, right? Because of things that we've learned, things we think might happen. Is the person going to be dangerous? All of that. But sharing your fears can help deepen the connection, and you're being more real that way. And that doctor definitely shared some of his concerns and fears, and my family shared their concerns and fears, and that helped us connect and have a real conversation. So empower. We get to the P. I will be with you without fixing, judging, or advising you. I will be with you without fixing, judging, or advising you. I've been so blessed to be with people like that, to let me be empowered and make my own decisions around medication. And I still, from time to time, I will use some medication to help me sleep. That's been a huge thing for me. But it's not every day. It's not even every month. But it's as needed. And that's the best, for me, that's the best use of medication. and this can be hard to do in intense situations, is to be with someone and let them feel their own empowerment and let them make their own choices. So the fifth one, I am not sure what is best for you. Together we explore the unknown. You've already heard my story is different from Dan's story, which is different from Kim's story, which is different from Carmen's story, which is different from other people's stories. That's why we cannot prejudge or assume that we know what's good for someone, right? Because every person is different. The sixth is together we release the power to heal that lies within us, moving towards our wellness. So whenever we enter into a crisis situation, we try to support someone, whether it's coming off meds or whatever crisis it is. It's not just about the person who is going through something. It is about the person who is supporting, and we're doing it together because we enter that crisis together. And my family was definitely in it with me. And luckily, we have been able to heal together. So then the seventh is revitalize. We authentically create new life, new voice, and new hope in the present moment, which is revitalizing. And for me, a big part of revitalization was coming off meds, honestly. Not sleeping 16 hours a day, not being 40 pounds heavier than I needed to be, not feeling sick all the time, not being able to concentrate. I definitely feel a lot more energy nowadays. So for me, the last time that I was on any medication was 2013. So that's 13 years. And like I said, from time to time, yeah, I'll take something, but it's not consistent. So I appreciate you hearing some of my story. I know I talked for a bit. I will share the floor. I do have a clip from the movie that I was in, coming off psych drugs. If we have time at some point before the end, we maybe can show it. It's like a minute clip. And we might have some good conversation based on that clip. Also, Laura Delano is in that movie. So as Dan said, or as Kim said, I think it's free. It's free on YouTube. So you can watch it and you can see Laura Delano 2 years into her own recovery. And I was one of the trainers with Will Hall who trained Laura. It's Laura Delano. She was a participant of that training. So it's a very interesting film. And if we have time, I'll show a clip. But I want to pass it over to our next speaker, Carmen.
Yeah, Carmen, thank you, Oryx. Carmen, so please
Hello.
tell us your personal and professional experience as well.
I was feeling, hello, everyone, and just welcome. Thank you for taking time out to join us on this webinar. I'm super excited. You've heard my bio, and I'll probably talk a little bit different, but I just want to share, first of all, thank you so much, Dr. Dan, for I know I've only met you a few times and haven't done too much together, but I appreciated hearing your story, your strength, your journey. And Oryx, I know you and I've always appreciated your story and your transparency and your authenticity about talking about your journey. And I think that's why I feel super, super comfortable sharing my own stuff. I was sitting here thinking about the title, right? The title, The Value of Peer Support and Emotional CPR in Medication Reduction. So the title itself is important to me. It impacted me in a way because, first of all, I'm a peer. I'm a certified, well, I still am, but I'm retired. I've been retired the last couple of years from behavioral health. But I started out as a certified peer. And so it said the value of the peer support. So I like that automatically, right? Because I believe that is an area that is so important right now, that the peers are the front row people, right? I know the doctors and the therapists and all that other stuff, but the peer is the person that's on the front row because they're the ones that's going to get that real person, that authentic person, right? Because that's what makes us connect, because they go, oh, you're a person that has a lived experience like I do myself. Unfortunately, I didn't have that. That was not part of my story. I believe part of mine came from trauma. I came from a very dysfunctional family, and I came from a lot of things that no one knew what to do at that time. And culturally, we didn't know about therapy. We wasn't looking at outside situations, or looking and seeking help for what was going on. The other part of this I love is that emotional CPR and medication reduction. Not only do I have these many, many years of lived experience with my own mental health diagnosis, and unfortunately, early on, I was diagnosed with multiple mental illnesses. And the truth of the matter was, at the time I got into services, and I'm a little older, so they were not treating mental health and addiction at the same time. You know, if anyone knows anything about that, that was not happening. They were saying, if she has mental health problems, we'll treat that. But if she's in active addiction, we cannot. So I stayed very sick in the system for many, many years, which only kind of led me to continue to self medicate because I didn't know how to deal with my mental illness. That was my story. And I spent 25 plus years in active addiction, addicted to every substance I believe that was out there. And many of those years I was in IV drug user. Many of those years it led me in and out of prison. Many of those years it have had me locked up in mental institutions, you know, with the diagnosis being you will never get out. You're never gonna get a life. This is what's going to happen. You're going to work in a little store, putting a box together. And this is what they were telling me. There was no conversation about recovery. And so that is my passion. I think that is why I love the idea of healing and recovery, and the idea of having someone like me, or someone that has experienced some of the things like I have, that I can connect. And so that's what I think, and I pray that I bring when I work throughout the 25 years of my career with people. I'm going to speak from the perspective of my um, addiction, because I know that's kind of where the value of the peer support came in, but also emotional CPR, even before I became a trainer. What I found out was I operated in a lot of fear that was stimulated by trauma, but no one knew how to say that to me. All they said was, stop this and do that. And of course, there was lots and lots of pills. So for me, already with an addictive personality, if you gave me something that made me good, mood changing, mind altering, I abused it. And that's one of the biggest problems we see now when we're giving medication for people that are just, example, not all the time, in recovery, or using some medication for reduction from heroin, or methadone, or anything like that. Those things can be abused, right? And I literally was on those drugs, so I abused anything and everything people gave me, because I operated out of, as I said, a lot of fear, and no one really knew what to do with me and my family, because they didn't know about the diagnosis, about seeking the psychiatric help that I needed. And all I kept hearing was a lot of shaming and blaming, and do as we say, and just they were telling me what to do. No one was telling me how to empower myself, how to use the tools that was around me, whether that was friends that could understand what I was going through, that I was willing to share. Because out of fear, I always thought if I told people what I was really thinking in my head, outside of the drugs, I knew I was going to be locked away somewhere. And most of the time, that's what happened. If I started telling people the thoughts that were going on, so I operated, like I said, a lot in fear. The fact that it's talking about now applying this emotional CPR and medication reduction is a game changer for this reason. Most people, a lot of people, I can't say most, a lot of people use because a mood changing, mind altering substance, because they want to feel different, or they cannot deal with how they are feeling or interacting in any given circumstance. And then I look at the bigger picture, the holistic part, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually. We all probably are aware of any of those dimensions of wellness. For Carmen, there was no clear boundary what I was dealing with at any given time. So I always just learned how to muddle through and kind of put on a great mask. Even when I started getting into the service from when I finally got into some mental health services, I was very good at lying, hiding, and pretending. And I think that was because I didn't want anyone to know what was going on with me because you're not going to like me. How can you help me? No one can be like me. And that was the sad part about it. And so as I started this recovery journey for Carmen, it was a combination of things. Not only did I need to have a person that knew how to talk to me, but when to talk to me and what to talk about to me, right? Not kind of going back and so much into my past, but how it affected me. And this is when I started getting new information about, as we talk about ACE and those adverse childhood experiences. And I figured out how that manifested into some of my addiction and some of my criminal behavior and all of that. And I just want to say, while I'm saying that, a lot of things that I think I suffered from, it was not just because of the mental illness or even the addiction. It was because I felt lonely. I felt alone and lonely. And so I feel like as we are talking about reducing and opening up these doors that maybe have not been opened in the past about helping people to apply emotional CPR, which I love every one of the intentions because I'm a trainer as well. What I love is that we can help empower people, but we also create a community for them to see who's there to help. Because sometimes it's not always your family. I'm just going to be honest. Sometimes families are more afraid than you are. And that was part of Oryx's story. I mean, not that they don't want you to get the help, they just don't know how to do it because sometimes they feel like that reflects on them. There's so many variables and moving parts to this. I think for me, in the addiction part, especially when I was using heroin, I didn't, I used because I didn't know what else to do. And then when they gave me something to help me, I'd use that. I abused that. There was really no, you know, a way for me to figure out how to be accountable to myself, right? Because I was good at looking at other people. The doctor's telling me this, I'm going to do what they tell me. And if it don't work out, it's your fault. So I spent a lot of years of doing that. But in the process of getting into some outside community events, I did emotional CPR. I also went into Narcotics Anonymous. I needed multiple things to help me because I had multiple problems. But when I figured out some things as I was learning, I do have some accountability, not just blaming people and not just looking at the trauma, but how I didn't make better choices when I had opportunity. I was able to start sharing that honestly with the people that were around me to help me, right? And I started being honest with my therapist. And I really believe that had I not did a combination of all those things, my personal relationship with the God of my understanding, being honest with my therapist, and really identifying what I could do different on a daily basis, which is where my rap plan came in. I had to figure out how to stay well in times when I wasn't with anybody. I had to know what was going on with me, and that was a process. So I think now, as I got into the field and I started working, and I started off, as I said, as a peer, and they was very new. They didn't really know what to do with me, but I felt like I just wanted to be there and be with people. I wanted to hear what they were saying and help them to see that the things that were going on around them and their diagnosis, even whatever the diagnosis was, it was a part of who they were. It was not them. So I always believe, and I hate absolute, so I'm going to apologize for that. I usually try to come from and meet people from a place of strength. I believe everyone's capable to help themselves. I think they have tools within them that they don't really know until maybe some of the noise is shut down. And I used to call it like white noise. It's always going on in our head, especially if you have, and I was diagnosed with bipolar. And so, and many other things which were probably true, but I know that's the one that when I got that diagnosis, I thought, wow, this really clears up a lot of this insane thinking and behavior for myself. And I was so appreciative of that. And I started looking around and researching other ways to get better, to get well and stay well. Because I could stop using, but I couldn't stay stopped. I could get on my medication and do okay for a while, but either I'd abuse it or just cut it out because I would get to feeling better and I'd go, well, I don't need this anymore. And those the kind of way I operated for many, many years. It wasn't until I got a combination and worked things together, the doctor, the medicine, the community recovery. And then for me, most of all, was being honest with myself and with others. And then I became open-minded to what my life could look like. And in that moment, in that period of time, not that moment, I decided I don't want to be on medication forever because I was a child that seen my mother on medication my whole life. And I thought, I don't want to have to be on medication. And I decided that I wanted to figure out how to stay well without as much medication, if that was at all possible. For Carman, I chose some other options. I also chose to build my relationship with the God of my understanding to a better degree so I could balance my life out, find my own self-worth. And then I also ended up being willing to do the work. And the fact that I had one excellent person in my life that said, you got to be willing to suffer. And because I wanted everything to be easy, that's why I used drugs. I wanted it to be easy and I wanted it to be quick. And when I realized I had to be willing to be uncomfortable for a little while because I was looking at the big picture, I wanted to be well in a different kind of way. And once I started pulling all that together, then I decided to go back to school. And it wasn't, I wish I could say it all happened as fast as I'm saying it, but this was a period of years. And then I decided I wanted to help other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I just realized that then I found out about, the peer, and I went to school for peer and I started working in the field. And I just found out that I just really found, like you say, I don't know if people say this, but I say it. I found my niche. I love working with people. I love women. I have a women's ministry. I also work with women in co-occurring disorders. And I just found out how to help people was to show up. But the fundamental part came out of when I got a hold of emotional CPR, how to connect and how to help empower people. And revitalization is the main thing I love because you have to have a goal. You have to see the end thing. It might not be clear, but there's something that you can say, how do I get there? And I start every day. If I want to be better tomorrow, I'm going to work on it every day. And that's how I started living my life until this became my life. It was no longer a training. It was no longer just trying to fit the pieces together. It became my life. It is my life. And so I'm really, really grateful for that. And the willingness to apply the tools and the skills and use the resources. There are so many.
Before we go into resources, Carmen, because that would be like one of
Go right ahead.
the end
Yes.
part. Can I
Yes.
just ask you this question? Because I think this is so important because you mentioned about emotional CPR, but before you knew about emotional CPR and you reflect back on how people were supporting you, did you then go, the ones that you connected with, did you go, that was emotional CPR?
Oh, no.
They were connecting with me. And I didn't even know it because I seemed like I remember your story when you said there were people that couldn't connect with you because they didn't know how to see all of you and receive you. And then those that could, even though you didn't know emotional CPR, and maybe they didn't either.
Mm-hmm.
Would that have been your experience when you look back on it going, I think that was emotional CPR?
In hindsight, yes. I can tell you to the very day, the first person that I know showed me emotional CPR was one of the ladies I met. She was working I was in a homeless program, and I remembered meeting her. She might have even been a case manager, and her name was Miss Vicky. And I used to go see her all the time, you know. And I remembered when I walked in her office, I mean, I had this whole little spiel. By this time, I'm in my insanity and all this stuff's going on with me. And I already knew what I wanted from her. I wanted y'all to give me this, this, and this so I can go on and stay insane. And when I walked in there, she said, how, it penetrated to my soul, the question. She said, how can I help you? And it wasn't like, how can I help you? Like, do you need this and this? She said, I'm here to help you. And I thought, oh, okay, well, let me give you my little list of stuff. And she said, no, how can I help you? And in that moment, out of all the years I had built up this whole wall to protect myself from people from seeing me, it was like she's seen me. And that was the connection because she's seen me not as the drug addict, not as the all the things I was doing, not as a person in there that was totally out of my mind. She saw a human being. She saw a person. She saw a hurting person. And I could tell it was in her tone. It was genuine. It was authentic. It wasn't like, this is my job. It was, I'm showing up for you. I see you. And it broke something inside of me. And I knew in hindsight now that was connection.
Could,
Yeah.
could I jump in for a sec?
Sure.
So yeah, when I went through my first kind of episodes, 1999, 2002, eCPR wasn't created yet, and there were lots of people who were there practicing what we now call emotional CPR. So I think what emotional CPR does is it gives a language to things that we do as humans, and of course, it's a practice as well. So there is definitely something to it, but it gives a language for things that we already do. Because I definitely had the same experience, Carmen. I had people around me who were practicing emotional CPR with me before we had emotional CPR.
And here's the thing, and this is something that and then I see you. This is the thing, because we always talk about that as trainers, right? Emotional CPR is nothing new. It is nothing new. People have been practicing this from the beginning of time. It is very global. Many cultures have been practicing this, right? But I love what Dan and many others did as founders of emotional CPR is to bring it all together and to give it context, to give it words, to go, many of you, and when we do these trainings, many people go, oh, I've been doing this all along. Who knew, right? You sit up here and start thinking about the conversations maybe you had with a relative. I think about the conversations I had with my grandmother in the kitchen as a little kid while she's cooking. She was practicing emotional CPR. You know, I think about the conversations I had with other family members, or maybe a teacher that saw me, and maybe I was having, as a little kid, I'm having a really agitated day. We learn these skills from people that say, I see you. And I love with emotional CPR, though, is then to say, you know what, but we want to pull out fixing.
Yes.
Because even with that, many were practicing, but they wanted to also fix because they love us, they care about us, and they're jumping in. And so now we are able to pull that apart and go, no, because that is taking away someone's power. And that's something I know I learned when I became a trainer and learned about emotional CPR as well. Dan, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think in emotional CPR, we're tapping into the mother tongue, And what I mean about that is language before we had formal language. When we arrived in this world, we weren't speaking words, but we had to relate. And our caregivers had to relate to us. And that I think is a language we carry perpetually with us. And for myself, I think I went silent. My altered state, I didn't speak words, but I think what I was doing was trying to really develop more contact with my mother tongue, my nonverbal language, my emotional language, that underneath all the words, and without it, the words have no meaning. We think all the meaning is in the words. I mean, some estimates have been that words are 10, 15%, especially when you're emotionally very close to somebody. It's how they look, it's how they sound, it's other gestures, it's what you feel in your body. Those end up being more important, really, than words.
And you know what I
Absolutely.
want to say? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kim.
No,
I
I'm
wanted
saying
to say this.
absolutely. Go ahead.
I wanted to say this quickly too, because we didn't say it because we know this is not a full training. But one of the things that we talk about in emotional CPR is the gift of silence, right?
Mm,
Because
Mm-hmm.
being with someone is so empowering and so powerful that sometimes, and I found this to be just amazing for me in my professional life, when I realize that I can be with you. I don't have to try to figure out the next steps for you, or and we all had a protocol, we all had things we had to do. But I noticed when I was quiet and I was just with, and it just led just organically to a conversation when they were ready. And it really relieved me. It made me feel better because I didn't feel like I was trying to fix, manage, and control. It gave me the freedom to let people do and be and get to where they need to do and be. And I used to say this all the time. Your recovery is not what you do in this office with me. Your recovery and your healing is what happens when you're by yourself. When you can make, when a thought comes to you and you go, oh, wait, I don't need to take that extra pill. Or, I can stop this right now and I can do some breathing. I can do whatever else is necessary.
mm-hmm.
That's the empowerment part, because what I do for me is going to last a lot longer than what Oryx does for me. I'm going to appreciate all that, but there's going to be a time Oryx not going to be there. But when Carmen is by myself, and I say this is what I say to myself about myself when I'm by myself. So if I'm changing my thinking, which is where most of our addictive thinking is, right? It's in our addictive thinking is it's up here. If I can start changing that, and while I'm changing that and picking up these tools and putting them together like a puzzle, now I'm in a position to go and say, listen, I really feel like I don't need as much medication. Maybe I don't literally say those words, but I'm looking like, I missed a couple of days, or I started this, and I really realized I don't need to take it every day, all day, 3 times a day. Let me go back and say, hey, you know what? I missed a couple of days, whatever that looks like. But now I'm in a position of empowerment. Oh, come on now, to have a conversation. Because I feel empowered, because I'm owning what I need to do for me to take care of me. I'm allowing people to help, but I'm not dependent on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And Carmen, I think that's so powerful because many people probably just listening to this webinar has had somebody that just sat with them and not say a word and was so connected.
Mm.
And you reminded me of the people that really connected with me were the people that didn't say a word.
Mm-hmm.
And then being able to give that to somebody else in return is such a gift. And I want to highlight something, and we're going to open this up. So I want you to start thinking about your questions that you might have with the little time that we have. And I know we want to continue this conversation, and we might later down the road. But I wanted to highlight something that you brought up, Carmen, on loneliness. And there's research out there. And I like this one because it just really kind of puts things in perspective. It says research reveals that chronic loneliness and social isolation carry health risks equivalent to smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day.
Wow. That's
Think
amazing.
about that, y'all. When what is emotional CPR offering? Connection, right? Connecting with feelings. First, Carmen said, I just felt so lonely. right? And of course, the mortality rate is high, the cardiovascular impact to this, and just so many other
Yeah.
diseases to the body. And you can do your own research on this to
Yeah.
find out. I saw Oryx, you put your hand up there.
Oryx, yeah.
So I don't know if you're setting me up for a nice pitch with a home run, that
Go,
swing that I'm
go.
going to hit. But so we just did a study. Well, we didn't do it. We contracted out for Dartmouth researchers did a study on emotional CPR in BIPOC communities,
Mm.
BIPOC trainers, BIPOC participants, the whole deal. And one of the results, exciting results of the study is that participants reported feeling less lonely after the training. So obviously, with anything that helps loneliness is really important. And emotional CPR, now there's an evidence base, at least in BIPOC communities, to reduce loneliness. That's huge. It's huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dan, thank you, Oryx. You
Yeah.
can find that. Hold on one second. And I'm going to tell you about our website later, but you can also find the study that Oryx is talking about on our website at the National Empowerment Center and also emotional CPR. But Dan?
Two things. One is about loneliness. You can be in a crowd and feel lonely. You can be
Mm-hmm.
with people and feel lonely. And I think the distinction that really overcomes loneliness is connecting heart to heart.
Mm-hmm.
And that, so people think just having people around, people sometimes just have to be in a crowd or they have to, just always be with people, but they're not connecting. And that's why they still feel lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the key thing with emotional CPR is that it helps attune your emotions so you connect emotionally. And when you connect emotionally, then you you have a self, you have strength, you have capacity to do the things Carmen was talking about. You can make your own decisions. You can be with yourself. You can really make plans. Uh, People can't make plans very readily if you don't know how you're feeling. So a lot of people are just operating, from the neck up, and they are not aware of what they're feeling. And that's a real setup for addiction, because I think what's missing, you think, is some substance to make you feel. A lot of people they'll drink alcohol because they can feel more comfortable in a party. They're nervous about. I used to be nervous about going to parties, and I felt like I had a drink or something, or marijuana or something, as a social lubricant. But
Mm-hmm.
there's better ways,
Mm.
because those are artificial. They're not really you. And better ways are to learn who you are and who other people are emotionally. Then every
Mm-hmm.
person's an opportunity instead of a threat.
Absolutely.
So, sorry
Dan,
about
thank
that.
you for that. I would like everybody, if you have a question, please do
Here's a
us a
big
favor,
one.
put it in the chat. We'll continue the conversation unless there's a question. And if there's a
We did
question,
have a request to show the clip. So
okay, we'll do that as well. And
Here's a question I see, Nadia.
okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one thing that we want to point out too that's very important, we're going to talk about what you can do if you are one of the people or know someone that wants to begin to titrate off of these meds. What does that look like? Before we start that off, one of the most important things about emotional CPR is we call it me CPR. Okay.
Yes.
Mm,
And that is what Carmen is talking about. What happens when Carmen, there's nobody else around, right? It's just me.
mm,
And how do I take care of self? What does that look like? Me CPR. And we also look at it as self-care as well. And another one that we talk about is we CPR, right? So it's not just that one-on-one, that we CPR can be people in your family, or maybe there's a group that you meet with, and maybe a few people that come and support you. So it is that one-on-one, heart-to-heart that Dan is talking about with connection, empowerment, revitalization. And then there's me CPR and the supporting self, and what does that look like in the we CPR as well.
Yeah, and if I could just jump in for a second with the me CPR piece.
Yes, please.
I think unfortunately, that's where a lot of us are stuck with coming off meds, because there's not a lot of support for coming off meds, whether it's from doctors, family members, whoever, friends. Like, there's a lot of negative messages. Oh, you're gonna fail. Why are you doing this? That kind of thing. So you're gonna get worse. So a lot of people end up having to do this journey on their own and practice a lot of me CPR and what is actually working for me. Because if I tell someone that I'm doing this, it's not going to be helpful for me. It might actually be unhelpful because of the messages that I'm going to receive.
I just want to say,
I agree with you on that, Oryx, because moving a lot of times in silence helps you to meet your goals, because sometimes people want to disrupt that, right? Carmen, I know I was interjecting at the same time you were about to talk.
Yeah, you're fine. And one of the thoughts I had was this about when I was trying to come off of medication, whether it was my psychotropic meds or it was for medication for my addiction, a lot of it was my own learned behavior. I learned through misinformation that I needed X, Y, and Z. And even though sometimes I don't believe it always was working, my learned behavior was get up and take these 4 pills, or go to bed and take these pills. So it was very much a learned behavior. So I think also applying emotional CPR helps us unlearn these behaviors. Because if I realize that instead of maybe taking all of these pills and I'm minimizing it, but I also have to have something put in that place. If I'm feeling like I need these pills to help me go to sleep, just example, what can I do for myself so I can be in a more relaxed state? Take some of those wonderful suggestions, maybe not watching TV or not listening to music or not being on my phone. Some of the things that hype me up, maybe if I can decrease that, and I can also decrease taking medicine. So when I lay down and go to sleep, my mind will be able to rest. These are some of these learned behaviors. I don't think anybody told me about that for years and years and years. And I didn't know. So I kept doing the same thing, as we know, as insanity, expecting a different result. And when I started saying, this is what I'm going to do at night, and this is what I do in the morning, instead of taking out these certain pills, I'm going to get up and I'm going to get into the natural light, or I'm going to go sit on the porch, or I'm going to make sure that I have some time for myself to pray and meditate, whatever that looked like. But I got to learn and develop a habit for me. But also it came from all the tools that I had around me, Age of Ventures Wellness and so many other things that I was putting in my pot, right? Yeah. So when I needed something, I had something to pull out of there. And then it gave me an opportunity to have a better conversation with my doctor when I thought, I don't want to be on this medicine anymore. Yeah. And I can honestly say I haven't been on medication in years now. That's one thing I don't discuss with my consumers. I don't discuss medication because I know that's different. But if they want to have a conversation, I will support you when you're in there with the doctor.
Absolutely.
That can be very scary.
This isn't a conversation like we shared where, oh, let's get off of these medicines. Yes. This is horrible. Some of us know that we need certain medication and they go hand in hand, and this is what's good for us. But if you fall into that category that you say, man, I would really love to begin to titrate off certain things, is to know that you're not alone as well. So I would love for Oryx, if you don't mind, everybody, I want you all to see the clip. We're getting close to closing out. And then we're going to talk about some resources if you do fall in that category. And And then we might even have this conversation in the future. There's so
Yeah, there
many.
might be a part two. We might just be getting
Absolutely.
started.
Absolutely.
So I think this will be entertaining to watch. It's the part of the film of public opinions on medications and coming off medications. He went to Washington Park in New York City and just asked random people. Daniel Mackler, the filmmaker, he asked random people about this topic. And so when you watch it, think about how people respond to and who's the expert in terms of who the person is uh, and who are the people with lived experience. So a lot of people talking about the topic and not having the lived experience and the issues that might bring up. Because there are some people who are talking about the topic who've never been placed on these medications. So, and that's a different type of experience, right? So, I think you'll enjoy this clip, and then maybe we can have a few comments about it. But this is just one small part of the film.
When Will Hall mentioned the subject of stigma and bias in society, my mind traveled back 3 years to my initial attempt at this film project, when I spent a winter afternoon and evening in New York's Washington Square Park studying the public's perception of psychiatric drugs. Now it seemed that a sampling of that footage might be particularly relevant. When you hear the word psychiatric medications, first thing that comes to your minds.
Mental patients, like straitjackets, that sort of thing, violent images.
Drooling, lithium, Adderall, crazy people.
Honestly, I think crazy.
Prozac, antidepressant commercials.
Medication that helps people with psychiatric issues, that helps, any kind of chemical imbalance in the brain.
I have positive feelings for it.
Psychiatric medication is whack. I mean, take it from me.
I'm a medical student. I'm my last year of medical school. So for me, I see them as a very productive and positive, I guess, yeah, I mean, when I hear it, I think of something that can really help people.
As a youth, I got in trouble and this and that, so I was put inside of a group home. I'm out of North Carolina. And instead of going to the core.
Schizophrenia, people who really need help.
When I talked to my problems with the psych, he'd say, well, this is what's wrong with him. We're going to put him on Haldol, Prolixin, or Thorazine.
Actually, I have ADD, so I was put on Ritalin when I was 8 years old.
If used appropriately, it's a very valid modality of treatment.
Yeah, I was on it for about 8 years.
Restoring chemical imbalances and, getting people back in line.
It affects how you interact with people. So I think maybe relationships would be improved. No, I don't really trust psychiatrists anymore after that because they always just kept trying to give me more medication.
What they do is give these kids medication when all the kids need is attention.
They weren't really listening to me or my issues. I tried Ritalin, Concerta, Adderall, and all these things, and certain things actually made me depressed as a 10-year-old.
It's lousy. I don't recommend it for no one.
The only danger is if it's being used inappropriately by someone who's not thorough and competent. If dispensed or prescribed by a competent, responsible psychiatrist or psychopharmacologist, there should be minimal risks.
This is very interesting that you're asking me this right now. My roommate actually just got off his medication and was actually in the psychiatric ward last week because he was having withdrawals.
You're talking to a mental health practitioner.
Yeah. There were a lot of mood swings going on when I went off of Ritalin, for good. My body had to kind of get used to it, and I ate more.
I was able to get off of it. I don't think I need them, but the way that the world is, I think everybody is crazy.
I just think that if there is an opportunity to not go on medication, I think that's the best way to go.
Because what's crazy is a person that's misunderstood, and if you don't understand it, then it's crazy to a person that don't understand it. Everybody just need love and attention, and that'll make this world a better place.
Interesting finale there. All you need is love and understanding. That'll make the world a better place. It's not so easy, love and understanding, though.
Absolutely.
And who does society listen to? Do they listen to that guy? No.
Absolutely
Nope.
not. Thank you, Oryx. That was a very powerful clip.
Yes, thank you.
And if you could also put in the chat where they can watch it free in its full context,
Sure.
that would be great. We've got about 8 minutes left, y'all. So I want to just give you a quick reminder that this webinar is not intended as medical advice for specific medications or individuals. This is just an informational webinar, a conversation around it. And yeah, so I just want to give that friendly reminder. Yes, Dan.
I want to say a word to clinicians and especially actually if there are any psychiatrists or if you're in touch or you want to talk to your psychiatrist. You may need, if you're receiving medication, to first educate yourself about withdrawal and what's involved. There is a booklet that Oryx mentioned, and there's some other resources at Inner Compass that Laura Delano's group has. Find out more for yourself what's involved in a holistic approach. I think is very helpful. Exercise, diet, meditation, other ways to reduce anxiety, to overcome depression that are non-medical. But also, you probably find that it's very important to work with your psychiatrist, but they will probably need education too. So in a very thoughtful, meaningful way, engage in that kind of conversation with your psychiatrist and say, you know, I'm interested in coming off medication. It's a long process. I hope that you'll be able to go through this with me. I'm learning more about it. Maybe I could give you some resources too, and you could learn more about it as well. And it's hard to speak up to your psychiatrist because psychiatrists hold an awful lot of power. Not only the power to commit, which no other profession really has. Without any court hearing, you can be placed into a psychiatric hospital. That's why you need allies. You need other people, to communicate with and support you. But also, psychiatrists just don't get good training. I hate to say it. I was lucky.
So true.
I had my training back in the Stone Age, practically, when it was actually believed that therapy is important. I had 6 therapy supervisors, individual, couples, family, community. I thought, this is an awful lot. I'm very grateful when I look back on it. They each helped me with different levels of relating and relationships. Today, unfortunately, most psychiatrists are told to prescribe and only give them 15 minutes to see the person. By the time you walk the person back to your office, you've already lost a few minutes. You have to write something in the chart. You may have to consult with their lab. You don't have a chance to say hello. But try to really engage. Carman had pointed that out. Engage in conversation and have a support group. When you're going through this, have other people that are knowledgeable, been through it, peers, and learn emotional CPR, because I really do believe emotional CPR will help you. And we have a new form of it, and that's community eCPR, which is after the 12-hour training, you can continue on a monthly basis to meet together. This is something that actually my 2 daughters are trainers, and they came up with this idea in Berlin. My daughter in Berlin came up with it and said, why not meet 2 hours, 2.5 hours and practice eCPR? So as community practice. And that will especially, I think, be helpful in withdrawal. I think we should do a research study at Kim and Oryx on applying it to withdrawal from heroin, perhaps from other oxycodone, other addictive drugs, but also to medication.
Yeah. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate you. And
Oh, there we
thank
go.
you. And thank you, everybody. Thank you for hanging out with us this afternoon or morning or, evening. You're all over the world. I don't know what time zone you're in. This has been just a treat to bring this to you and to really just have the conversation around it, right? And that's so empowering in itself. Carmen, I'd like to thank you, my friend. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I appreciate you. Oryx, thank you so much for sharing yours as well. Dan, as always, thank you. This was really an idea that you said, you know what, we need more conversation around this. So thank you so much for encouraging us to get together and talk about it. So you want to learn more about emotional CPR? I would love for you to go to our website. And Oryx, while I'm talking about that, do you mind putting that in there for us? Emotional CPR website. And at our website, you're going to find, if you look under trainings, you'll find all of our trainings, our 2-day training certification. And we're now doing lunch and learn. So if you just want to pop in and get your team in there, just get yourself and learn about emotional CPR. You can, if you have any questions around it, you can contact me, Kim Ewing, the Director of Training and Engagement, and we can customize something to meet your needs. You just let us know what that looks like. And you can also go to the National Empowerment Center website as well, and you can learn more about us there. We also have a YouTube page with a lot of our videos there. You'll find the Lunch and Learn and its completion, which is the introduction to emotional CPR there. You'll find some interviews and people giving their testimonies. They're very about emotional CPR. People have shared that this has truly changed their life. I'm one of them. And this is before I became a trainer. I have been forever changed, but we hear this all the time. So please check it out. Come in and explore, and we're happy to partner with you. Before we go, do us a favor. I love always to end with this. Put in the chat 1 or 2 words of what you're walking away with today. What is that you're walking away with today? 1 or 2 words. We would love that. Put that in there for us. What are you walking away with today? And I'm going to ask that of Oryx. Oryx, what are you walking away with today?
Oh, well, it feels really good. Honestly, the positive feedback in the chat. So yeah, it definitely feels affirming.
Affirming. All right, I love that word. Affirming. What's your word, Carmen?
Revitalized.
Revitalized. I love it. Dan, what is your word?
I love people's interest in this, and there's a book. We have an emotional CPR book also. You can write away for it, and also there's another book, shameless promotion here, called Heartbeats of Hope. That's a book that I wrote. So,
and somebody actually started us off, Jane. The word is hope. I'm seeing insight, knowledge, important of connection, a new way to look at things. Someone thanking us for this day. Connection, revitalization, confidence, hopeful, and confessions, or maybe confusion. I'm not seeing that.
Warm community that's healing one another.
Absolutely. Empowerment, resolve, grace, and for grace, we'll end there. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We appreciate you. Have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world, and we'll share this recording with you later on. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.